Sometimes there are just those images that shouldn't exist, but they do. Maybe you wanted to know the story behind some of these pictures, or maybe you clicked on this video due to pure curiosity. Either way, these pictures will be documented today. Okay, so let me introduce you to one of the strangest and most confusing pictures that was floating around the early internet. The man with the half dog, half human face. If you've never heard of it, buckle up, because this one sends people down a weird, uncanny rabbit hole. This photo depicts what seems to be a man whom has a dog's snout, ears, and different parts of the dog's body seemingly just attached to his face, with no real explanation, which honestly explains why there were so many fake stories surrounding this image. I remember when I was a kid, I thought that this picture was actually real. As in, I thought that this was some kind of crazy guy who went out of his way and got surgery to make himself look like a dog. Honestly, it wouldn't even be that surprising considering what kind of weird modifications people have been known to do to themselves. But I was always confused because no matter how much I did look, there was never any more content on this guy. There were no videos of this or anything, which kind of just led me to believe that this was a bad Photoshop. But no, it was something completely different. It was actually an art piece created by the artist Rodrigo Braga back in 2004, entitled Compensation Fantasy. The reason Rodrigo decided to make the picture has a lot to do with a traumatic memory he has from his childhood, in which he came across a dying dog and felt overwhelmed as he couldn't do anything to save it. And that moment stuck with him into adulthood, with Compensation Fantasy being a way to kind of confront that trauma by literally wearing the face of the creature that once haunted him. It's disturbing, but yes, it is also deeply symbolic and touches on themes of empathy and morality in a very strange and bizarre way, sure, but not something too out of the realm of what you would expect from an art gallery piece. The picture is simultaneously real and fake at the same time, in a way, as it's actually made of a real dead dog's face, but not actually Rodrigo's real head, but simply a silicone replica of his head that was basically melded with the cadaver of this dead dog that, mind you, was already dead before this art project even started. A lot of Rodrigo's art seems to revolve around this sort of melding of the human and animal world. But this picture isn't really all that creepy when you realize the actual connotations behind it. That doesn't really change the fact that this picture absolutely disturbed me as a child. So much. You see here, an unsettling creature, blending human and rat-like features, large rounded face, distorted proportions, uncanny eyes. No one quite knew the origins from a glance, but back in the day, it was used to shock kids into obedience. According to the circulating folklore, a girl disrespects the Quran by throwing it or kicking it. As punishment, she transformed into a rat lizard-like creature. The image would have been shared in schools, mosques, or neighborhood gatherings as some sort of moral scare tactic. There were several variations of the story as well. Some versions even claimed she turned into a mermaid, or a musician turned into a fish, by the same divine whim. I remember seeing this picture around and basically hearing the first version of the story. I didn't really know that much about the other variations, but the history behind this picture goes way deeper than you would possibly think. The image was actually an art piece, not unlike some of the others on this list, this time created by Australian artist Patricia Panini, a sculptor known for her hyper-realistic and unsettling human-animal hybrid sculptures. The piece was from her We Are Family series. Panini herself publicly disavowed the hoax, expressing how disturbed she was by her work being repurposed to scare children and misrepresent spiritual ideas. Now, to take you back to 2020 or 2019, you've probably seen this picture before. A seemingly bizarre-looking man wearing what seems to be an uncanny mask, or maybe prosthetics or makeup or something. Long black ears, a round black nose, and a wide human grin stretched across weirdly goat-like features. He looks kind of like a twisted version of Goofy or like a feral dog dressed up as Goofy. It's definitely disorienting to look at. It's simultaneously funny and also kind of scary. Now, granted, there's a series of other pictures with this exact same character in them. The original picture was created around 2012 or 2013, but where things got really disturbing was around late 2019 or early 2020 when people started hijacking the image, using them as their own profile pictures under the name Jonathan Galindo. which is most likely what you know this picture as if you know about this picture at all. The name became sort of a ghost persona across platforms, where the people using this persona weren't exactly the best of people. It only took a matter of time before they started asking people to play a game, and if you said no, all sorts of things would follow, ranging from threatening to doxing. The game in question was called the Blue Whale Challenge, although I might have to censor that because I'm not sure if YouTube will allow me to say it. Yes, because it literally got that bad back in 2019, 2020. So bad that people couldn't mention it in YouTube videos. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case anymore, but I'm gonna try to be safe. The games in question revolved around dares, encouragement, and all sorts of weird things. They would pressure usually what seemed to be kids into doing basically mundane things at first, before escalating the tasks. The dares quickly became way more intense. It only took a matter of time before kids started engaging in things ranging from self-harm to, well, actual self-deletion. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. If you refuse to comply with this character, either you or your family members would be at risk of dying. Of course, this was never actually the case, but the kids who were tricked into playing this game had no actual idea. What makes the story behind this image even more tragic is the fact that the image itself was created by an artist and cosplayer, Samuel Caney, known online as Dusky Sam. He only ever created it as a weird, goofy cosplay for his own amusement and artistry. It wasn't ever supposed to become some weird, scary, creepy thing that was used to torment children. And multiple times he had to come out and basically say that he was not behind any of these accounts, which is something that he just never should have had to clarify in the first place, but ultimately did just because of how widespread the challenge in question became. The picture is basically just of a guy wearing prosthetics and makeup. It's really not that deep of an image, but it took on a life of its own, only because malicious people had their own malicious intentions. And Dusky Sam was just one of their casualties, used to create even more casualties. There was never a singular Jonathan Galindo, which made it basically impossible to hunt them down. It was just a bunch of different people pulling the strings in their own weird ways, for their own twisted amusement. This picture right here, it has spawned so many theories and so much folklore around it. This picture is very strange because when you look at it, you just really don't know what you're looking at. It seems to be either a cow woman, dog woman, pig woman type creature, and nobody really knows what this thing is. But what makes it even more peculiar is that she seems to be on a bed or something like that, in some weird, clean, white place. On top of that, she also seems to have her own children or puppy-like creatures. But what are these? What is the context here? What could possibly be going on? This spawned a lot of its own theories back in the day. A lot of people use this as proof to say that there were scientific experiments going on that we just didn't know about, and that some group of people, whether they be associated with the government or some private firm, were doing these sort of human-animal experiments, either for military research, organ transplantation research, or something else, maybe even something more nefarious. The claim was that that was basically what was going on. Another theory claimed that this was some sort of human-animal hybrid created by a human and animal, whatever that animal may be, getting jiggy, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah. That's disturbing and disgusting, sure, but very unplausible. What made it even more peculiar is, again, those kids. This thing being able to reproduce proves that it was able to make viable offspring, which even something like a mule, a mix between a horse and a donkey, can't. So either this was some sort of weird scientific miracle created in a lab, or somehow humans and animals can just breed now and nobody knew about that. Again, the last one is really ridiculous and very implausible, but people still believed it. Now, if you really start to look at this art piece, something becomes abundantly clear. It shares a lot of similarities with the Rat Girl, but why? Well, simple answer. They're both art pieces made by Patricia Panini. This time, this picture was part of the We Are Family collection that she created. It is very strange to see multiple of her pictures trended with completely different contexts. But the strange part about this is a lot of other pictures that I just didn't bother putting on this list because to me they weren't as important or as extreme were also created by her around the same time. It is very strange because I remember these sort of weird British dog guys. What are they? Yeah, again, it's basically just another statue that spawned its own legends and myths, which is pretty strange to think about. But that seems to just be a trend with a lot of Patricia Panini's artwork. If you are on the internet during the height of 2018 to around 2020-ish, you've probably seen this picture before. But what is it? Momo. But what is Momo? This is one of those pictures that just trends and everybody kind of understands why. Even if you never bought into the horror elements of it, it's hard to admit that this picture isn't unsettling on some level. But why is that? Who knows? Maybe we're just hardwired to see things like this as creepy and unsettling. It was created by the Japanese artist Kazuki Aizo. It was built as part of an art exhibit in 2016. The artwork was called Mother Bird, and when you see the full picture, it kind of changes the entire context. As most of us are only familiar from Momo from the neck up, which changes the context a lot. It's far less scary when you realize that it's a bird-like creature, although maybe it's more unsettling now, but considering the challenges, I really wouldn't be scared of this bird thing. The issue with Momo wasn't so much the piece itself, but the challenge that it spawned, and that's still what it's most remembered for. Just like the original Blue Whale Challenge, this spawned its own challenge, the Momo one, which basically went the exact way that the Blue Whale Challenge did, with escalating challenges that eventually led to kids apparently harming themselves in some way, shape, or form. Police departments in over 10 countries, including Germany, Argentina, and the United States, issued public warnings to schools and parents to check their kids' phones. The issue with this is that there were no confirmed cases and no credible reports to authorities in most of these cases, and a lot of this was just people panicking over nothing, as it doesn't really seem like the Momo challenge really amounted to anything much outside of headlines. What becomes even stranger is that Aizo said that he destroyed his sculpture after the moral panic, but I guess the damage was already done, as Momo had become part of internet folklore, spreading fear, inspiring mods, games, and all sorts of YouTube videos, and basically endless urban legends. In short, Momo was essentially just another one of these sculptures that kinda got out of hand and formed a life of its own. Something that seems to happen quite often. I guess artists really just can't be artists anymore. In the early to mid 2000s, a photo started circulating around the internet, making its way throughout all these different forums and different pages all across the early interweb. The picture in question shows a man in a winter coat who seems to be just hanging out on the observation deck of one of the Twin Towers just moments before disaster, bundled up in his winter clothing and just chilling. The photo in question claimed to show the exact moments before the first impact on 9/11. People dubbed the man in the image the tourist guy, as they didn't have a name for him. The image basically spread like wildfire from there, being passed around like a piece of modern folklore. It felt haunting and even eerie to a certain degree, but there were very obvious, glaring issues with the image from the very beginning. The shadows were wrong. The observation deck wouldn't have been open at that point in time, and the plane didn't match. But here's the issue. The main one that I think kind of exposes this one for being just straight up stupid and ridiculous. Something that I don't think you even particularly need a big brain to notice. Look at what he's wearing. 9/11 happened in September of 2001, which, unless that September was opposite day for some reason, why the hell would it be cold enough for this man to need a damn coat? It just doesn't add up. The weather seems to be all sorts of off. He wouldn't have even been able to get up the Twin Towers with that jacket without dying of heat stroke before the towers even hit. It was all just very off and strange. The thing about the image is that the tourist man did indeed visit the Twin Towers, but it wasn't in 2001, and it certainly wasn't September 11th of 2001. The Hungarian tourist actually visited somewhere around 1997. From the picture, obviously it must have been winter or something. The picture was created when him and his friends were basically just goofing off and having fun. But somehow it got out of their inner circle and started making its way throughout the internet, trending on different sites and being shared by people who didn't know any better. The picture in question is literally just that. It was a goof, something that was made by a group of friends to just laugh at. But that's what the picture was. It wasn't really anything more than that. Just a picture that was basically a troll amongst friends, and nothing more than that. It wasn't supposed to be anything else. But of course, the internet does what the internet does. And hey, if you like this video, Remember to like and subscribe. I'm going to be out for now. Peace out. Expect some new videos pretty soon. Anyways, booyakasha.